영어 원서 읽기 500번 읽기 도전 19번째 버니큘라. 최대한 열심히 해서 500번을 꼭 빨리 마치도록 하겠습니다. 그리고 영어 원서 읽기를 할 때 저는 지금 발음을 최대한 정확하게 하려고 애를 쓰고 있습니다. 발음을 학생들에게 가르치고 있는데요. 한 개 한 개 개별 소리를 공부할 때하고 문장으로서 발음을 할 때하고는 조금 틀린 것 같습니다. 제가 발음을 똑바로 하고 있는지 알 수 있는 좋은 방법 중에 하나가 유튜브 동영상을 이렇게 찍어서 영상을 재생할 때 밑에 자막 생성 기능을, 자동 자막 생성 기능을 활용해서 제 목소리를 자막으로 함께 확인하면서 보니까 틀린 발음이 참 많구나 하는 걸 알 수 있었습니다. 그래서 앞으로 자막 생성 기능에서도 정확한 발음이 표시될 수 있도록 최대한 발음에 신경을 써서 읽도록 하겠습니다. 자, 버니큘라 Chapter 4 A cat prepares. I almost didn't make it to my meeting with the chatter that night. Toby had a feast in his room. It was Friday night, and on Friday night, Toby gets to stay up and read as late as he wants to. So of course he needs lots of food to keep up his strength. Good food like cheese crackers, chocolate cupcakes, my very favorite, the kind with the cream in the middle, pretzels and the peanut butter sandwiches. The last I cannot abide because my mouth always gets stuck. Chocolate cupcakes with the cream in the center, however, are another story. This particular evening, I stationed myself on Toby's stomach. I'm a little more subtle, but having missed out on the bacon at breakfast, I was not about to take any chances on the chocolate cupcakes with the cream in the center. Toby knew what I was after, but sometimes he thinks he's funny and he plays little games with me. Hi, Harold. I'll bet you'd like a peanut butter sandwich, wouldn't you? Here, you have this one that left over from yesterday, while I ate this boring old chocolate cupcake, which is nice and fresh and has cream in the middle. Okay, Harold. My sides are splitting. What's the matter? Don't you want the peanut butter sandwich? All right. I will put it away for another night. Oh, here's something you might like. It's a green sour ball from Daddy's candy dish that was stuck to my sock. Would you like that, huh, pal? Oh boy, the kid is really hot tonight. No, huh? Well, I'll give you one of my cupcakes. But I know how much you hate chocolate. Would a little drooling on your stomach help convince you otherwise? Oh, you like chocolate? Okay then, you can have both of them. One thing I have to say about Toby, although he's got a rotten sense of humor, he's a nice kid. Naturally, once I'd eaten both cupcakes, which took approximately 4 seconds, I felt obliged to hang around and let Toby know I was grateful. What better way than to share a few of his cheese crackers? Well, Harold, Toby said sometime later, we've had quite a party, but I have to go to sleep now. I can't keep my eyes open, so I'll have to wait until tomorrow to find out what happens in the next chapter. This is a good book, Harold. It's called Treasure Island, and it's by a man named Robert Louis Stevenson. It's kind of a hard reading though. I have to keep looking the big words up in the dictionary, so it's taking me a long time to get through it. I've always had trouble with the words myself. Half the time they don't mean what I think they are going to. And then, even when I do find out what they mean, I forget the next day anyway. You might say that I'm smart but just not the scholarly type. But it's a really good story, Toby continued. It's all about the pirate and this little boy just like me. No dogs. And a parrot, Harold. A parrot. What's a parrot? Is there anything about chocolate cake? That's my idea of treasure. Well, good night, Harold. If you're gonna sleep here, you'll have to get off my stomach because it's a little full right now. Good night, Toby. I curled up at the foot of the bed, but I couldn't sleep trying to figure out what a parrot was. I thought it might be a lady's pirate, since the words sounded something like but then again, I thought it might be an umbrella. Chester would know, I thought. So I went downstairs to ask him. Well, you certainly took your time, Chatter snapped as I sauntered casually into the room. I finished my book half an hour ago. Where were you? It so happens I was discussing great works of literature with Toby. Since when is a Twinkies wrapper considered a great work of literature? I decided to ignore that. Unfortunately, several chocolate crumbs fell from my mouth to the floor at precisely that moment. As a matter of fact, I said, trying valiantly to regain my dignity, we were talking about the treasure island. Ever hear of it? Ever hear of it? He sneered. I read that when I was a kitten. Oh, then. Tell me, Chester, what is a parrot? Chester looked at me scornfully. A parrot, he said, is a tropical gygodactyl bird, order Ctesiformes, that has a stout, curved, hooked bill. It's often crested, brightly variegated, and an excellent mimic. In other words, Harold, a parrot is a little bird with a big mouth. Oh, I said after a moment. I thought maybe it was an umbrella. Did you get so busy discussing parrots with Toby that you forgot you were going to meet me here? This is important, Harold. I still wasn't sure what a parrot was, but I decided this was not the time to pursue it. Come over here, Chatter commanded, indicating his chair, and let me show you this book. I looked at the chair. Chatter was already sitting in it, with a very large book open in front of it. I don't think there's going to be room for both of us, Chatter, I said. Come on, you're wasting time, just jump up here. I surveyed the scene carefully. I knew I would have to get a running start, since there was just a tiny spot left for me, and I would never be able to fit into it if I pulled myself up slowly. Apparently, I was taking too long for Chester's liking. Will you get up here? He hissed. Okay, but that's what you want. I ran and jumped onto the chair, landing with a great kerplunk. Chester, where are you? I cried. I couldn't see anything but the back of the chair. I'd forgotten to turn myself around. I'm here, you great oaf. I turned my head. What are you doing on the floor? I asked. You knocked me off the chair. Now just stay put. I'm coming back up. I moved to the back of the chair, and the Chester landed on the front. Now let's see, he said. We both have to see the book. You come over here, and I will move this way. I don't know if you've ever watched a cat try to decide where to sit, but it involves a lot of circling around, sitting, getting up again, circling some more, thinking about it, lying down, standing up, waving a paw or tail, and circling. A dog, on the other hand, sits. This looks like a good spot, a dog will say to himself. He will then lower his body to the spot in question, and is usually so secure in his decision that he will fall asleep immediately. Chitter took what felt like 20 minutes to settle himself in, and just as I was drifting off, the kicks started. Come on, Harold, quick, hugging the seat, and wake up. What were you trying to do? Take a little cat nap? Ha ha ha, I yawned. Now, said Chester, turning to the book, let's get down to brass tacks. What exactly is on your mind? I asked. This book and that rabbit, Chester replied. Now tell me, Harold, have you noticed anything funny about that rabbit? No, I said, but I've certainly noticed a lot of funny things about you recently. Think about it. That rabbit sleeps all day. So do I. So do you. Furthermore, he's got funny little sharp teeth. So do I. So do you. Furthermore, he gets in and out of his cage by himself. What kind of a rabbit can do that? A smart one, I said. I could do it. We are not talking about you, Harold. We are talking about the rabbit. Now, where did they find him? At the movies. Yes, but what movies? Dracula, I said. So, he said quickly. Remember the note around his neck? What language was it in? An obscure dialect of the Carpathian mountain region, I answered smugly. He didn't know everything. Aha, Chester said. But what area of the Carpathian mountain region? Area? What's an area? I looked at him blankly. Transylvania, he cried triumphantly. And that proves my point. What point? What are we talking about? And don't forget the white tomato. That's the most important of all. But what? This book, said Cheddar, disregarding me, tells us just what we need to know. What? I practically screamed. What does it tell us? What does this book have to do with the vernacular? What are you talking about? What's going on here? I can't stand it anymore. Cheddar regarded me coolly. You are really very excitable, Harold. That's not good for your blood pressure. I put my paws around his throat. Tell me, I said in a low, threatening voice, or I will squeeze you till you pop. Okay, don't get upset. No, this book tells you everything you've always wanted to know about vampires, but were afraid to ask. Personally, I had never wanted to know anything about vampires, but at the moment, I was afraid to tell that to Chester. I still don't understand what vampires have to do with our little furry friend. 1, Chester said. Vampires do not sleep at night. They sleep only during the day. The same holds true for that rabbit. 2, vampires can get in and out of locked rooms, but Nicola gets in and out of his locked cage. This was beginning to interest me. Didn't you say something about the refrigerator? That's right. He got the refrigerator open all by himself. 3, vampires have long pointed teeth. They are called fangs. Well, don't we have fangs? No, we have canines. That's different. What's different about it? Fangs are more pointed, and the vampires use fangs to bite people on the neck. Yuck! Who'd want to do that? Vampires would. That's too. Wait a minute. I saw Mrs. Monroe bite Mr. Monroe on the neck once. Does that mean she's a vampire? Boy, are you dumb? She's not a vampire. She's a lawyer. She bites the necks. I don't think that's quite the same thing. No, Bonicola does not bite people on the neck. At least, not so far. But he does bite vegetables. On the neck? I asked. Vegetables don't have necks, Harold. Vegetables are like that. It's like dogs. Dogs don't have brains. Dogs are like that. Oh yeah? I said. Of course he bites vegetables. All rabbits bite vegetables. He bites them, Harold, but he does not eat them. The tomato was all white. What does that mean? It means that he pants vegetables, I ventured. It means he bites vegetables to make a hole in them. And then he sucks out all the juices. But what about all the lettuce and the carrots that Toby has been feeding him in his cage? What indeed, Chester said. Look at this. Whereupon he sticks his paw under the chair cushion and brought out with a flourish an assortment of strange white objects. Some of them looked like unironed handkerchiefs, and the others didn't look like anything I'd ever seen before. Where are they? I asked. Chester smiled. Lettuce and carrot, he said. White lettuce and carrot. I found them hidden behind his cage. I was aghast. What did it all mean? Could Chester be right? Was this a harmless looking little ball of a fluff really a vampire? Just then, Chester let out a yelp. Look, he said, the cage is empty again. Oh, we are fools. We will let him get out of our sight. It's your fault. My fault. You are the one who took 20 minutes to sit down. Well, if you hadn't knocked me up in the first place. Wait a minute. Why are we arguing? Let's find the Bonicula. Just then, we heard a click in the kitchen. Refrigerator, I whispered. Chester nodded. We jumped down and moved cautiously to the kitchen door. Shh, Chester warned unnecessarily as we crept along. Don't make any noise. We don't want him to hear us coming. Obviously, I retorted. The light went out under the door. He must have closed the refrigerator, Chester said. Easy now. We pushed the door open. The kitchen was dark. There was not a sound. Psst, Chester. What? I can't see. I can, but I can't see him. He's not here. There was a soft scamper across the linoleum, and we turned just in time to see a little white tail bounce out the door into the living room. Drat, we've missed him. Come on, Harold. Let's see if we can catch up with him. Chester started toward the door. Wait, Chester. What's that on the floor by the refrigerator? He turned. This new object interested him more than following Bunnicula. Watch out, he said. I will take care of this. He slunk across the room, slowly, muscles taut, eyes alert. When he was about 6 inches away, he stuck out his paw, closed his eyes, and batted at the object tentatively. I don't think he made any contact. Get closer, I said. Chester's eyes popped open. Who's that cat here? He asked. I know what I'm doing. And he proceeded to bat the air 3 more times. What is it? I squealed, as my throat contracted in fear. I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's not alive. Oh boy, if I wait for you, we'll be here all night. I walked bravely to the object and sniffed it. Well, asked Chester. Beats me. Chester came closer. After a moment of close examination, he gasped. I jumped. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Harold, Chester blurted. What? It's... Yes, it's... What is it, Chester? It's a white zucchini. Chapter 5. Chester goes into his act. The next morning, I was awakened by a scream. Robert, come down here right away. There's something wrong in the kitchen. For a moment, panic seized me. I thought she'd run out of dog food. But then I remembered the events of the previous evening. Mr. Murnau came bounding down the stairs. Chester, I cried. Did you see Mr. Murnau? His face has turned white. It's a Bunnicula, isn't it? No, he said calmly. It's a shaving cream, you idiot. By now, the excitement in the kitchen was at full throttle. The table was covered with Bunnicula's handiwork. There were white beans, the white peas, and the white squash, and the white tomatoes, and the white lettuce, and the white zucchini. What can it mean, Robert? Mrs. Murnau was saying. I'm getting worried. One tomato is a curiosity, but this is unheard of. There must be something wrong with our refrigerator. That's it. It's turning all the vegetables white. But look, she said, I left these tomatoes on the windowsill, and they are white too. And this squash I left in the bowl on the table. At that moment, Pete and Toby came into the kitchen. Holy cow, what's going on? Hey, maybe it's a vegetable blight, Mom. Could that be, Robert? Did you ever hear of anything like that? Well, no, actually, there is. I've heard of a blight, but nothing like this. Chester leaned my way. This will take forever if we will leave it up to them. Sometimes the human beings can be so slow. I started to answer him, but he was heading for the table. What about that friend of yours in the agriculture department? Oh, Tom Cregan? Could we call him and ask him if we were doing something wrong? It's a DDT, Mom, Peter interjected. I know about this stuff. It's because you buy vegetables that aren't organic. All vegetables are organic, Peter, Mrs. Murnau replied. That's not what my teacher says. See, Toby, I told you this would happen. They are using chemicals on our food, and if you're not careful, you will turn white too. Like that. Robert, couldn't you take the shaving cream off your face? Oh, yes, of course. Where's my towel? I know I brought it down with me. For that matter, where was Chester? I'd seen him going toward the table, but I'd lost the track of him listening to all that talk about the DDT. I just hoped that they didn't use any of that stuff. Well, they grew chocolate cupcakes. Pete, did you take my towel? Why would I take your towel, Dad? I don't shave. Just then, the door swung open. I could not believe my eyes. There was Chester, with Mr. Mullen's towel draped across his back and tied under his neck like a cape. That was strange enough, but on his face was an expression that sent chills down my spine. His eyes were wide and staring. The corners of his mouth were pulled back in an evil grimace. His teeth were bared and gleaming in the morning light. He cackled menacingly and threw back his head as if he were laughing at all of us. I thought he had completely lost his mind. There's my towel. What's the matter, Chester? Were you cold? Mr. Monroe bent down to take the towel from Chester. Before he could lay his hands on it, Chester flipped over onto his back, closed his eyes, and folded his paws over his chest. It was a hideous sight. He opened his eyes wide. With a paws outstretched, he slowly lifted his head. His eyes glazed and vacant. Soon the upper half of his body followed, all in one smooth flow, until he was in a sitting position. "Hey, Dad, did you leave your brandy glass out last night?" Chester is acting a little weird. "Well, son, cats are funny creatures." I glanced at Chester. He wasn't laughing. "Psst, Chester, what are you up to?" "I'm a vampire, you dolt. Can't you tell? I'm trying to warn them." "Well, it's not working. You'd better think of something else." Chester frowned, apparently deep in thought. "So you see, Toby," Mr. Monroe was explaining, "all cats are as individual as all people. Maybe he just wants to get our attention. Isn't that right, kitty cat?" Ordinarily, Chester would have left the room upon being called kitty cat, but he was lost in thought. "Come on, Chester, give me back my towel." Mr. Monroe moved toward Chester. Chester's eyes lit up. He looked at me and smiled. I sensed I was not going to like what he had in mind. I was toying with the notion of sinking under the table when Chester fixed me with his eyes. How deep they were, like black pools. I felt myself applauding, lost in them, my will no longer my own. I felt an inexplicable urge to murmur, "Yes, master," when he walked slowly, steadily toward me. As he drew nearer, I found myself unable to move. He stopped before me, never taking his gaze from me, and lunged. "Yo! Mount Chester bit Harold on the neck!" "Oh, that wasn't a real bite, was it, Chester? That was a love bite. Isn't that cute?" "Love bite my foot. That hurt." "Chester, what's the matter with you?" I sputtered. "Do I look like a tomato?" "Oh, it doesn't matter anyway, Harold. They don't understand. How can human beings read the same books I do and still be so thick?" Our conversation was interrupted. Mrs. Muller picked Chester up and cuddled him. I was praying she would not add insult to injury by kissing his nose, which he hates more than anything. "Poor Chester, do you need a little love? Do you know what I'm gonna do, you big ball of fudge, you?" Uh-oh, I could tell what was coming. "I'm going to kiss you on your little nose." Yep, I could tell that was coming all right. Chester knew better than to resist. He went limp in Mrs. Monroe's arms. Mr. Monroe took his towel off Chester. "I still don't know why he's wearing my towel," he said. "I think he must be cold, dear. Here's your towel. Why didn't you get his kitty sweater?" Chester looked ill, and he can wear that all day. As Chester was being buttoned into his bright yellow sweater with a little purple moss and cowboy hats all over it, Mr. Monroe said, "What about those vegetables? Shall I speak to Tom Cragen?" "Yes, dear," Mrs. Monroe said. "Why don't you? I'm sure that's some explanation. In the meantime, I'll change the market. To tell you the truth, I'm really much more worried about Chester. We'd better keep our eye on him." Chester and I did not speak until late afternoon. I was busy nursing my neck, and Chester was busy hiding under the sofa, too embarrassed to be seen. When we did speak at last, it was a brief exchange. "Hey, Chester," I called when he finally crawled out from under. "We don't have to worry about any vampire bunnies anymore. All you have to do is stand outside his cage in the sweater, and he will laugh himself to death." Chester was not amused. "That's right, make fun, all of you. No one understands. I tried to warn them, and they wouldn't heed. Now I'm going to take matters into my own hands." Whereupon Chester and his 16 purple mice went into the kitchen for dinner. Chapter 6. Harold helps out. That night, I had an uneasy sleep. Strange noises emanated from downstairs. It sounded like toenails were clicking back and forth on the floor. It must be Bunnicula making his midnight run, I thought. although I'd never known him to make a sound. And I smelled the funniest odor in the air, something familiar, though I couldn't place it. As the night progressed, it grew stronger and stronger until finally it tickled my nose and I sneezed myself awake. I jumped off Toby's bed, still sniffling, and headed down the stairs for the living room to find Chester, to see if he could smell it too. The odor grew even stronger as I approached the living room. Standing in the doorway was Chester, a strange pendant hanging from his neck. "Phew, Chester," I said. "What are you wearing that awful thing for? It smells." "Of course it smells," he replied. "Here, I made one for you too. Put it on." "Are you kidding? That thing smells like garlic." "It is garlic," Chester stated matter-of-factly. "Why are you wearing garlic?" I asked, thinking that by this time Chester was capable of anything. As we walked into the living room, I tripped on another piece of garlic lying in the doorway. "Careful," said Chester. "Watch your step." I surveyed the room and saw that it was strewn with garlic on the doorways, over the windows, and around Bunicula's cage. The poor little fellow had buried his nose as far as possible under his blanket. I was about to follow his example and return to Tom's bed to bury my nose under the blanket when Chester grabbed my tail with his teeth. "You're not leaving this room until you put this on," he grumbled at me. I think that's what he said. I wasn't sure because he had my tail in his mouth. "It's not polite to talk with your mouth full, Chester. Drop that tail." Meanwhile, my eyes were beginning to water. "Listen," Chester snapped at me, fortunately letting go of my tail first. "The book said to use garlic." "What book?" I asked. "The Joy of Cooking?" Chester continued. "The mark of the vampires says garlic renders vampires immobile." "What does that mean?" "It means they can't go anywhere if there's garlic around." "Well, I've got news for you, Chester. I can't go anywhere either. The smell is killing me. But you've got to put it on. It says so in the book. If you don't put it on, I will put it on for you." "No, Chester," I said as my nose suddenly and involuntarily closed. "I'll be leaving this room right now." And I did. I was just so sick to my stomach from the aroma that I decided to spend the early morning hours outdoors. As dawn approached, it seemed that it would be a peaceful day. The sky was clear, the birds were singing, and I felt contented after my difficult night just to be lying in the grass, feeling the ladybug's curl up my ears. Suddenly, the calm was broken. Strange piercing screams came from the area of the kitchen. "Not again," I thought. What turned white now? As it happened, it was Chester, there in the sink, ladled with soap, with the feline detective yelling his head off. Mrs. Muller was scrubbing him vigorously, and from the sound of her voice was in the middle of a long lecture. "I don't know what's gotten into you, Chester. You never played with garlic before. I told you hated the smell of it, and here you've gotten it all over yourself. Stop wiggling. You will get soap in your eyes. If you want to chew on something, I will get you some catnip, but stay out of my herbs." Then she rinsed him off, rubbed him with a towel, and plunked him down in front of the stove to finish drying. "Shut the door," he hissed at me. "I'm freezing. That silly woman, does she know cats don't get bath?" "What do you mean? I get bath all the time," I said, closing the door with my back foot. "That's because you're too dumb to bathe yourself. Cats always bathe themselves. It's a rule. Everyone knows that." "Well, at least it smells nice in here again." I sniffed as I settled down next to Chester by the stove. "And it's all toasty warm here in the kitchen." "Surely it smells nice again," he said. "But now the house isn't safe anymore." "What do you mean?" I asked, getting closer. "I mean, it worked last night. The garlic worked. No more vegetables turned white, did they?" "No, but that means Bunicula didn't get out of his cage last night." "Maybe he was just tired," I said. "Well, or maybe he was full. Don't be ridiculous, he replied. It was the garlic. He couldn't leave his cage. But tonight he will be free to roam again, and I've got to find a way to stop him that isn't smelly. Mr. and Mrs. Muller were hurrying in and out of the room, stepping over us, late for work. Mrs. Muller yelled up to Toby, "Don't forget to take the steak out of the freezer when you get home today, Toby, and leave it on the plate table to defrost. And this time remember to put a plate under it." Chester's ears perked up. "Of course," he said. "That's what I'll do." And he strolled past me with a knowing smile. Mrs. Muller turned off the stove and left the room. It was too much for me to figure out, so I went to sleep on the nice, warm kitchen floor. I was awakened by a bite on the ear. Chester was sitting by me, looking very impatient. "Boy, nothing wakes you up," he said. "I've been yelling and poking at you for 10 minutes. "I was dreaming," I answered defensively, "about a place where there weren't any cats around to bother nice dogs and wake them up when they needed their rest." "You can finish sleeping later," he said crisply. "Right now you have to help me." "Do what?" I asked. "Get Binocular out of the cage." I sprang back. "Get him out of the cage? I thought that was what you didn't want. I thought you said he was dangerous. What if he attacks me?" "Aren't you ashamed?" Chester replied. "Afraid of a harmless little bunny?" "Harmless? I thought you said he was a threat to this house and everyone in it. Isn't that what you said? Isn't that what we've been talking about all this time?" "He is a threat, but only at night. During the day, he's just a very sleepy rabbit, and that's why we have to do it now, while the sun is still up. Follow me," he said. "There isn't much time. Toby stayed down here forever, and the others will be home soon. Boy, you must have been tired, Harold. You slept through lunch." I followed Chester into the living room. My heart was pounding as he unlocked the cage door with his paw. It looked as if he had years of experience opening locks. The door swung open, but Nicola was sleeping peacefully. He did, however, look a little green around the gills, probably from the garlic. I was just wondering how a rabbit could have gills when Chester said, "Okay, Harold, do your stuff while I get what I need from the kitchen." "Well, what do you want me to do? I can't read your mind." "Get him out of the cage and onto the floor, and I'll be right back," Chester said. What? I verbalized. "How am I supposed to do that?" "Use your head," he answered, and he was gone. Looking at the cage, I realized that was precisely what I would have to do. Until this moment, I had never had to face the possibility of actual physical contact with a real live rabbit. I looked upon my chore reluctantly. I seemed to recall my grandfather telling me that one picked the rabbit up by its neck with one's teeth. This I attempted, though the very idea set my stomach churning. I squeezed my head through the tiny door and gently placed my teeth around the skin of Bunny's neck. To avoid any suggestion of violence, I've never been one for the sports of hunting. I prepared to think of myself as the creature's mother, carrying it off to safety. Unfortunately, I couldn't carry it anywhere, for once my head was in the cage, it wouldn't come out again. I could go neither forward nor backward. At that moment, Chester appeared at the door, carrying in his mouth what looked every bit like a nice big juicy raw steak. My eyes popped, my teeth dropped the Binocular, my mouth opened, and I began to drool. After all, I had missed the lunch. "Chester, what are you doing with that steak? Haven't you gotten him out of there yet?" "I can't get either of us out of here. My head is stuck." "Oh, Harold, sometimes I despair." "Here, I'll get you both out. I should have done everything myself." He came over, dropped the stick just a few feet away from me, and climbed up on my shoulders. "You pull your head out while I push against the cage. Who gets the steak?" I asked. "Don't worry about the steak, Harold. Just pull." I would have more motivation if I knew who is to get the stick. Chester ignored me. I pulled. He pushed. I felt something go pop. We all fell in a jumble. Chester, the cage, Bunnicula, and me. When I looked around, Bunnicula was lying next to me, still sound asleep. There you are, I said. We got him out. Now let's eat. No dice, Chester said. Just read this to me so I'll be sure I'm doing it right. And he handed me a book. That book. Again. Start at the top of the page, Chester said, as he picked up the stick. Why don't you read and I will hold the stick? Chester replied. I took it to mean that I was to start reading. To destroy the vampire and the end of his reign of terror, it is necessary to pound a sharp stake. Chester interrupted. A sharp stake? He asked. What does that mean? I'll taste it and tell you if it's sharp, I offered. Oh, never mind, this will do. It's a sirloin. Keep reading. To pound a sharp stake into the vampire's heart. This must be done during the daylight hours when the vampire has no powers. Okay, he said. This is it. I'm sorry I had to go this far, but if they'd listened, this wouldn't have been necessary. He dragged the stake across the floor and laid it across the inert body. Then with his paws, he began to hit the stake. Are you sure this is what they mean, Chester? Am I anywhere near his heart? He asked. It's hard to tell. I said, all I can really see are his nose and his ears. You know, he's really sort of cute. Chester was getting that glint in his eyes again. He was pounding away at the stake, harder and harder. Be careful, I cried. You will hurt him. Chester increased his attack. I was really getting worried when the door opened and Mr. and Mrs. Monroe were suddenly with us in the room. Chester, Mrs. Monroe screamed, what are you doing with my dinner? Robert, catch the stick away from Chester. And what's the matter with Bunnicula? Why is he on the floor? Mr. Monroe took the beautiful steak away. I wished it upon farewell with tears in my eyes. As the kitchen door swung open, Chester whispered with cold determination, all right, the last resort, and dashed into the kitchen. Seconds later, he was back carrying his water dish between his teeth. He ran toward the Bunnicula and with a mad yowl threw the dish of water at the rabbit. Unfortunately, he was so hysterical that his aim was not the best. With the water dripping from my ears, I watched Mrs. Monroe pick Chester up by the scruff of his neck and tossed him unceremoniously out the front door. Robert, we are going to have to do something about that cat. Look at this mess. Dinner's ruined. The poor bunny is out of his cage, and the Harold is just sopping wet. I tried to look as pathetic as I knew how. Poor Harold, Mrs. Monroe cooed as she dried me off. You've had a rough day, you and Bunnicula. I don't know what's the matter with your friend, but unless he learns how to behave, he will just have to spend a night outside. Mr. Monroe, meanwhile, had restored Bunnicula to his cage, and the cage to the windowsill. I couldn't believe it when I saw that Bunnicula was still asleep. And, Mr. Monroe said, the steak is ruined. Why don't we let Harold have it? He deserved a treat anyway, don't you, old boy? Don't you, old boy? I panted appropriately. After my delicious dinner, I turned my attention to the book, still lying open on the floor. Another method of destroying the vampire is to immerse the body in water. The body will then shrivel and disappear as the vampire emits one last scream of terror. Phew, I thought. So that's what he was trying to do. Thank goodness he missed. I had no regrets about missing a scene like that. Poor Bunnicula. I looked over toward the cage, and there on the other side of the window was a pathetic tabby face looking in. His little nose was pressed against the window. I couldn't hear him, but from the movement of his lips, I could see he was very unhappy. Poor Chester. As for me, Mrs. Monroe spent the evening petting me, and the family chatted with me all night long. And of course, I'd had my yummy steak dinner. So, it wasn't such a bad day after all. Except that now my steak was all gone. Poor Harold.